What if the answer to Edmonton's lingering goaltending questions isn't some blockbuster trade for household name, but rather a 24-year-old netminder quietly putting up elite numbers in Columbus that most fans have never even heard of? What if the Oilers' scouting presence at a Blue Jackets game signals something far more strategic than anyone realizes? Hey, everyone, welcome back. Today, we're connecting dots that might seem insignificant at first glance, but could reveal Edmonton's master plan for solidifying their crease heading into what they hope will be a deep playoff run. This isn't about panic moves or desperation. This is about smart organizations doing their homework and identifying value before the rest of the league catches on. Let's dive in. The scouting report that started it all, Aaron Portzline, dropped what seemed like an innocuous tweet. NHL scouts were in attendance for the Columbus Blue Jackets game against the Colorado Avalanche. On the surface, that's not newsworthy. Scouts attend games constantly, evaluating players across the league as part of their standard operating procedure. But here's where things get interesting. Portzline specifically noted the presence of goaltending scouts, and speculation immediately erupted among Oilers fans that Edmonton's brass might have been in the building. Portzline himself added fuel to the fire with a cheeky, gentle people, start your rumors, acknowledging that this kind of information tends to take on a life of its own in hockey circles. Elvis Merzlikins started for Columbus that night, stopping 32 of 35 shots and finishing with a .914 save percentage and a 3.10 goals against average. Solid numbers, but nothing spectacular. And frankly, there's no concrete indication the Oilers were specifically watching Merzlikins. They could have been evaluating Colorado's goaltending or any number of other players on the ice. But the presence of goaltending scouts suggests Edmonton is doing exactly what smart organizations do: evaluating options, gathering information, and preparing for potential moves should the need arise. Why Edmonton needs to be looking? Let's address the elephant in the room. The Oilers' goaltending situation is functional but far from settled. Stuart Skinner has shown flashes of brilliance and stretches of inconsistency. Jack Campbell's contract remains an albatross around the organization's neck. Calvin Pickard has been a solid backup, but isn't a long-term solution. More importantly, all three goalies are on expiring deals, which means Edmonton faces a critical off-season decision point. Do they commit long-term to Skinner? Do they bring in competition? Do they overhaul the entire position? These aren't questions you answer on the fly. These are strategic decisions that require months of evaluation, scouting, and planning, which is exactly why having scouts at games now, in October, makes perfect sense. The Oilers aren't necessarily looking to make an immediate move. They're gathering intelligence for decisions that might not materialize until the trade deadline or next summer's free agency period. The Merzlikins mirage. Let's quickly address the most obvious name, Elvis Merzlikins. At $5.4 million annually, he's almost certainly not a realistic option for Edmonton. The Oilers are already navigating a challenging cap situation, and adding that kind of salary for a goaltender who's been inconsistent throughout his career doesn't make financial or strategic sense. Merzlikins has talent, there's no denying that, but he's also been maddeningly inconsistent, alternating between stretches of elite play and periods where he looks completely lost. That volatility, combined with his salary, makes him a poor fit for what Edmonton needs. So, if the Oilers weren't there watching Merzlikins, who were they evaluating? This is where things get fascinating. Jet Greaves, Columbus's 24-year-old Group 6 unrestricted free agent, fits Edmonton's profile in ways that Merzlikins simply doesn't. Let's start with the numbers, because they're eye-popping. Greaves has played 24 NHL games and posted a .926 save percentage with a 2.57 goals against average. Those aren't just good numbers. Those are elite numbers, especially for a young goaltender still establishing himself at the NHL level. His 2024-25 performance was very solid, and he started this season strong as well. More importantly, he's doing it without the massive contract or the established reputation that drives up acquisition costs. He's the definition of a value play, a young goaltender with elite underlying numbers who's still flying under the radar because he plays in a small market for a struggling franchise. Why Greaves makes perfect sense. Let's break down why Jet Greaves could be exactly what the Oilers need, both short-term and long-term. First, the age profile is perfect. At 24, Greaves is young enough to develop further and potentially become a long-term solution, but old enough to contribute immediately if needed. He's not a project, he's a player who's already proven he can perform at the NHL level. Second, the salary situation is ideal. As a Group 6 UFA, Greaves won't command a massive contract. The Oilers could sign him to a reasonable deal that doesn't hamstring their cap flexibility, allowing them to maintain the depth and roster balance that's crucial for championship contention. Third, his statistical profile suggests he could thrive in Edmonton's system. The Oilers have one of the most potent offenses in the league, which means their goaltender doesn't need to steal games night after night. They need someone who can make the routine saves consistently and come up with a few big stops when it matters. Greaves' numbers suggest he can do exactly that. The depth consideration. Here's something that often gets overlooked in these discussions. The Oilers might not just be looking for a starting goaltender. With 3 goalies on expiring deals, they might be evaluating depth options as well. Championship teams don't just have one reliable goaltender. They have organizational depth that allows them to weather injuries, slumps, and the inevitable ups and downs of an 82-game season. Greaves could fit into that equation in multiple ways. As a backup with starter upside, as insurance if Skinner struggles, or as a long-term developmental piece who can contribute immediately if needed. The beauty of targeting someone like Greaves is the flexibility it provides. He's not going to cost significant assets to acquire. He's not going to demand a massive contract. He's not going to create a goaltending controversy that destabilizes the locker room. He's simply a talented young goaltender who could provide valuable depth and potentially develop into something more. Let's talk about what the scouting presence actually means, because it's important not to overreact to what might be routine information gathering. NHL teams scout constantly. They have personnel at games across the league every single night, evaluating players, gathering information, and building databases of knowledge that inform future decisions. The presence of a goaltending scout at a Blue Jackets game doesn't necessarily mean a trade is imminent or even likely, but it does suggest the Oilers are being proactive. They're not waiting until desperation strikes to start evaluating options. They're doing their homework now, building relationships with other organizations, and positioning themselves to act quickly if the right opportunity presents itself. That's smart management. That's how successful organizations operate. They don't react, they anticipate. The Columbus factor, it's worth considering Columbus's perspective in all of this. The Blue Jackets are in the early stages of a rebuild, accumulating young talent and draft picks while trying to establish a competitive foundation for the future. Greaves represents an interesting asset for them. He's shown he can play at the NHL level, but with Merzlikins under contract and other goaltending prospects in the system, Columbus might be open to moving him for the right return. They're not going to give him away, but they're also not in a position to demand a king's ransom for a goaltender who's played 24 career games. For Edmonton, that creates opportunity. They could potentially acquire Greaves for a mid-round draft pick or a prospect who doesn't fit their timeline. It's the kind of low-risk, high-upside move that championship contenders should be exploring. The timeline question, when might this actually happen? That's the million-dollar question, and the honest answer is probably not immediately. The Oilers are playing well to start the season. Their goaltending, while not elite, has been adequate. There's no pressing need to make a move right now, which means any potential acquisition of Greaves would likely come at the trade deadline or during the offseason. But that's exactly why having scouts evaluate him now makes sense. By the time the deadline arrives, the Oilers will have months of data on Greaves' performance, multiple scouting reports, and a clear understanding of whether he fits what they need. They won't be making a desperation move based on limited information. They'll be executing a plan they've been developing for months. Final analysis: smart scouting or smoke? So, what's the verdict? Is there substance to the speculation about the Oilers and Jet Greaves? Or is this much ado about nothing? The truth probably lies somewhere in between. The Oilers are almost certainly evaluating goaltending options across the league, and Greaves fits the profile of what they might be looking for. But that doesn't mean a trade is imminent or even likely. What it does mean is that Edmonton is being proactive, doing their homework, and positioning themselves to act if the right opportunity presents itself. That's exactly what championship-caliber organizations do, and it's a positive sign for Oilers fans who've watched their team come agonizingly close to the ultimate prize in recent years. Your take on this, all right? Here's what I need from you. Do you think Jet Greaves is a legitimate solution for the Oilers' goaltending situation, or is this just typical scouting that's being overblown? Would you rather see Edmonton commit to Skinner long-term, or bring in competition to push him? And what would you be willing to give up to acquire a goaltender with Greaves' statistical profile? Let me know in the comments, because goaltending debates always bring out passionate opinions, and I want to hear where you stand on this. If this breakdown helped you understand why the Oilers might be targeting Columbus, hit that like button, and let's keep tracking these potential moves as the season unfolds. The crease is where championships are won and lost, and Edmonton knows they need to get this decision right. Talk soon.